This is the Getronics Unified Communications webinar, enabling collaboration through the next generation workspace. I welcome all participants. I'm Wolfgang Stimmermann, running the Getronics Unified Comms strategy as a global portfolio manager. With me in this webinar are Joachim Henrath, business developer at Belgium, and Stephen Homer, solution architect in the United Kingdom. During our webinar, we cover the following topics: how unified communications fits within the next generation workspace, the specific requirements of different market verticals as they shift to the new way of working, market trends, including the growing demand for a hybrid unified comms approach, and how Getronics can leverage our experience to help shape your end-to-end UC strategy, integrating new and legacy technologies. 10 years ago, a workplace consisted of a PC, a phone, and a printer. We had to go to our workplace to work because it was hardwired. This has dramatically changed. Today we use many devices with a lot of applications running on different operating systems. The devices are wired and wireless. Though the format of information has changed, we still need from time to time to print. That's the challenge for all companies and public institutions today. It's the evolving workspace. What does the new way of working mean for our day-to-day job? What we use is based upon the activity we perform. We use a smartphone during a meeting to check information quickly. We use a laptop while working in the office. And during a workshop, we use a tablet to make our notes, or we use desktop sharing and whiteboard sharing to collaborate with colleagues joining the workshop at different locations, might be from home. Activity-based working, ABW, is a must-have today to provide attractive job offerings and achieve employee retention today. It's a new way to introduce innovation through collaboration. We call it connovation at Getronics. It's a new way to save energy because staff can work from anywhere and don't need to travel to workplaces to work. It results in real estate savings because less traditional workspaces are needed in every location. It contributes to an ecological usage of resources because we have to print less. And finally, it increases the productivity and efficiency of the company staff. To achieve these benefits and outcomes, we need similar user experiences on all devices during the different phases of the day. Unified communications and collaboration is one of the building blocks within the Getronics next generation workspace. It provides the infrastructure platform to enable communication and collaboration between people using applications running on heterogeneous devices. Today and in future, unified communications and collaboration is a must-have and not a nice-to-have for every company. Unified comms gets commodity according to our understanding. It's all about the workspace. End users want to use any device, anytime, anywhere, and have access to their tools, their colleagues and partners wherever they are working at the moment. But what does business think about this? Joachim, can you explain us specific business requirements and introduce us to the different market verticals as they shift to the new way of working?
Thanks, Wolfgang. This anywhere, anytime, and any device access is indeed the top of the iceberg. As you already said, for organizations, it's about addressing the most common challenges they have, accelerating business transformation, increasing their top line, reduce cost, so the do more with less paradigm. It's about increasing agility and covering also regulatory and compliance aspects. Drive new business models, improving and changing key business processes. That's one of the elements that needs to be looked at. The world has changed in so many ways. The way that consumers are consuming services, a lot of verticals have been developing new go-to-markets, have been developing new type of services that require also a new type of communication and collaboration internally to address and to make sure you have a good user experience for those services. Staying relevant is meaning innovating, is meaning collaborating in a better way, as already explained by Wolfgang. Collaboration and communication is key in accelerating your go-to-market strategies. For doing that, it's important that you understand your as-is business model and the future models you will be using. Stephen is going to cover that in way more detail, how we do that, but it's an important element. Productivity and efficiency. If you implement this new type of workspace in a good way, that's what you're going to gain, efficiency and productivity. And I'll be covering that in more detail later on. Attracting and retaining talent. It's the first time in history that we're going to have 4 different generations on the work floor. For some of the generations, this new workspace is maybe not as hot, but for the youngest, the millennials and the Y generation, this is a must-have. They're used to work in this new way of working, in a collaborative way where corporate boundaries are not important. If you would be restraining them in being able to do what they do, that would mean they get frustrated. The last part, simplifying your operations and allowing IT to respond faster to business demands and mitigate risk, is an element I'll be covering on the next slide in more detail. Today's communication and collaboration tools. The different modalities listed on this slide are not unknown for you. Today, all of you are using email, video conferencing, audio conferencing, telephony, and web conferencing, voicemail, instant messaging. The question is, how are you using that today? How easy is it for your users? Out of our findings, quite often some of those modalities have not been adopted well. Why? Because it was too complicated, it was too difficult to use. Today, you're quite often using multiple applications, multiple accounts, multiple tools to offer those modalities. That's not efficient. That's not where the productivity gain is going to come from. It's by resolving this and by offering your workforce, your employees, one client that can access all those modalities that you're going to realize the benefits, the faster go-to-market, faster decision-taking. Why? Because it will be easier for them to collaborate in their organization with their peers, with partners, and with third parties in an easy way. That's the federation element. So for doing your innovation or innovation through collaboration, having those type of tools will be key. Market observations. Why should you care? Out of our findings and what the analysts are saying, most enterprises are not operating with a unified communication solution. So they are using different applications, different platforms to offer those modalities. That's one element. The second element is that not all organizations are already using multiple communication modalities. Some are only using instant messaging and telephony, for example, but are not even using audio or web conferencing. That's also one of the differences that you see on a vertical level. But why should you care? If you look to those figures here, 76% of employees are reporting an increase in work requiring active collaboration. 50% of business productivity is tied to effective collaboration. This is underlying the importance of offering those type of unified communication tools towards your employees. Beside that element, it's also the other figures, the 73% and 87% of employees' work is not time-bound, is also underlying that this new workspace or new way of working is something organizations have to think about. The market trends. Evolving capabilities, let me start with that. Out of our findings, offering a consistent user experience is what organizations need today. As explained before, quite some of those cases in the past, like video conferencing or other modalities that have been introduced, have had a very bad user adoption. Why? Because it was not easy to use. That's why consistent user experience across the different communication modalities, so one client, that's why we at Getronics, we believe that you have to select a leading platform. But I'm not going to go too much into that. Next generation contact center. As explained before, organizations have adopted already quite often in how they address certain market segments. Now, what we notice now, for example, is that the contact centers are still treated as done 15 years ago. Contact centers have to work with scripts. The fact that you call an agent should be reviewed, because if you think about the social media and the impact of bad user experience, a lot of organizations should be rethinking the amount of money they spend on marketing budget versus the budget on customer experience. And customer experience, that's coming from how your customers are going to be serviced from your contact centers, and they should be rebranded to brand ambassadors. Contact centers require a different approach. Why? Because due to the fact that consumers having a self-service model now, the type of problems that are coming into a contact center are way more complex, and they require a collaborative approach. So your front desk has to communicate very efficiently with the back office. So unified comms and the omni-channel elements are so important in contact centers. That's one of the evolving capabilities that I would like to underline here. Web browser for video. I think video is the new dial tone for business. It's one of the elements that is driving the productivity and efficiency. Even on a country basis, you would be amazed to see how much companies can save out of wasted travel times between offices. Instead of having 2 meetings in a day, having 8 meetings on a day. That's what we're talking about. Looking for open standard and platforms that are scalable. Not every organization needs to cover all the modalities, but you need to make sure you understand what your business needs and where you want to go. But Stephen will be covering that in more detail. And the last aspect I want to cover on this slide is enhancing the key business processes. For example, in healthcare, what we see is that they're also looking in reducing their cost. And one of the elements is the number of days somebody has to stay in a hospital for the aftercare of a surgery. Now, we can reduce that by offering, for example, of checking, do you have already a tablet, or hospitals give a tablet with the patient so that the aftercare can be done remotely, reducing the number of days a patient has to stay in the hospital. That's one element. For example, in education, distance learning. In the Netherlands, for example, another good example is the fact that the courtrooms now are doing their interviews with persons that are imprisoned remotely, so you don't need to transport prisoners anymore for a lot of the smaller cases. Different banking sector. In the banking sector, you see already adoption, the new branch office, subject matter experts that are being used, virtual teller machines, access to bank service, and subject matter experts in different ways. Again, In Belgium, the last couple of weeks, there is an adverb of a big bank stating that the private banking, you have now James. It's a virtual person that can be contacted. It's a good example, again, of how organizations should be relooking their key business processes and what technology can mean in those. Video kiosks in retail operations and the virtual fitting room in clothing industries are some other good examples. Why choosing Getronics? Here I'm going to hand over the mic to Stephen Homer. He will be walking you through why you should be talking to Getronics and how we go about implementing the new workspace. Stephen?
Okay, thank you, Joachim. So why choose Getronics? Business requirements should always drive a solution. Our vendor-agnostic approach helps us choose the right technology for your needs, whether enhancing current systems through integration or migrating from older technology completely. We'll work with you to establish a clear business case for unified communication in your organization, engineering key milestones that form your roadmap to the future. Communication transformation is complex. Integration is part of the Getronics DNA, and we will understand and account for the pain points that are often barriers to user adoption and maximization of return on investment. Our service delivery models are flexible and tailored to your requirements, whether you need an on-premise deployment or a Getronics hosted solution. If it's administrator training and consultancy days for in-house support, or a full managed service interfacing with existing Tier 1 help desks, we'll ensure that this is the best fit for your needs. Next generation communication represents a significant cultural shift for your employees. It brings new ways of communicating, providing new ways to conduct business. User acceptance and competency are key to the success of a project, and key to this is communicating with and training for end users throughout this process. Understanding your business functions and the requirements of the users forms an important part of the process. Too often we see organizations spending twice the amount required for licensing with over-engineered solutions that offer very little consolidation and reduced overhead. New systems are dependent upon your core infrastructure, virtualization platforms, network and internet connections. And if that's not well dimensioned, then none of the applications will deliver as you expect them to. It's rarely a case of out with the old and in with the new. We know that the transformation process is often measured in years and requires protracted periods of coexistence and interoperability as the migration proceeds. Getronics have experience of business communication systems from leading vendors that spans decades. We understand traditional telephony systems and contact centers, IP telephony and conferencing, through to next-generation software-based unified communication platforms. Communication systems are evolving, and we can trace the development timeline from past to present and into the future through 4 key milestones of separate, converged, unified, and universal communications. For a typical organization, the further along this path they are, the more business value is added. More consolidation can be gained, operating costs can be lowered, and productivity increased. With separate communications, voice and data applications are independent. At this point, devices have a single communication application and are tied to dedicated infrastructure. Switching communication mode requires accessing a separate system or device. With converged communications, we integrate telephony into the IP infrastructure, removing need to maintain multiple networks. One device provides many functions, for example, email, messaging, and Skype applications. Switching communication mode requires switching application, but not device. Datasets such as contact lists can also be shared between these applications. Unified communications integrate functions within the application layer. The underlying infrastructure is now virtualized. One application provides access for all communication modes and the common dataset. The application operates on multiple device types, such as desk phones, laptops, or smartphones. And moving into the near future, with universal collaboration, this provides single interfaces that are independent of vendor or operating platform, integrating a mix of multimedia communications, collaboration, social networking, geospatial, and business applications. And this brings new levels of intelligence and contextual awareness to communication, with opportunities to improve productivity and efficiency. For example, prioritizing contact lists based on a physical location and calendar information. Universal comms also offer opportunities for enhancing customer services. An example here would be businesses engaging with customers via social media. And here, chat and video technologies become prevalent over traditional telephone calls. The adoption path shown is not absolute. The functions and communication modes can be adopted and leveraged as required to meet individual business need. Our solutions provide for simple integration and migration with future trends, avoiding technology dead ends to thoroughly maximize and protect your investment. And at the bottom of this slide, we have a table that shows our 3 key partners and the various features and functions that their solutions within the unified communication space offers, and the relative strengths of each. What this table doesn't show, however, is the associated costs and of both infrastructure and licensing that's associated with each. At Getronics, what we will do is analyze your business case and then choose the very best solution for your needs, typically from one of these 3 partners. So what's in it for you? Unified communication brings many benefits. The first and most obvious are operating expenditure savings. Smarter ways to communicate mean that some telephone calls can be avoided altogether. Rich and intuitive collaboration tools provide alternatives to meeting in person. UC-based meetings offer the same productivity levels of traditional meetings, but don't incur the travel costs or the cost of time lost in needing to travel in the first place. The total cost of ownership is also reduced through consolidation. Often, all aspects of the system infrastructure are virtualized onto existing platforms, requiring no additional physical space, installation, or maintenance. When fully embraced, unified communications foster new ways of working. There are fewer reasons to be at your desk. We see many customers enabling their mobile workforce through UC, operating away from the office for at least part of their working week. As a result, corporate real estate requirements can be lowered. The soft business benefits revolve around productivity gains. As a result of less time required preparing for, traveling to and from meetings, productivity increases. Traditional communication systems, that's email and voicemail, induce latency into business workflows. This dead time while we wait for correspondence to be opened and replied to. UC removes this human-induced latency, providing ways to directly communicate and collaborate with the right people at the right time. This real-time synchronous communication shortens many of the business cycles, offering quicker decision-making, reducing R&D times, and improves the overall experience for your customers. The combination of these allow operational benefits to be realized for the IT directorate, including consolidation of infrastructure and faster resolution of service tickets. There is only one communication system and one set of tooling to account for. The culture of work is changing. People are working for longer. It is the first time in history that 4 different generations will share the workplace. Unified communication offers the most flexible way to communicate and retain traditional familiar tools such as telephony and email, offering the best way to communicate for everyone, wherever you are and whatever device you have. Realization of these benefits is not so much a technological issue, but a cultural one. Understanding the possibilities and how they can empower your business by aligning structures to gain the most from these tools is a key part of our service. Every customer brings a different business case for adopting new unified communication systems, and each will benefit from a positive return on investment, which is often realized inside 2 years. Some examples of the diversity of our solutions include a global business with strong links to the oil and gas industry, needed a way to simplify communicating and provide rich collaboration to many difficult-to-reach areas of the globe, including floating vessels. And this was for 10,000 users. The solution that we offered provided retention of the existing Cisco telephony and conferencing systems and delivered a Microsoft Lync client to unify communication modes into a single application. Another one of our solutions was for a large local authority with approximately 8,000 telephony users, and they needed a solution for flexible and mobile workers, but keeping and continuing to invest in their existing PBXs at their central sites. A hybrid link solution was deployed that utilized existing telephony systems for call routing. Remote workers would use their headsets and soft clients for all of their communication needs, while internal workers will use the soft client to control their desk phones. In this way, we were able to offer a unified experience for all. At a much smaller local authority, they operated an aging and costly PBX system, and were looking for a way to reduce their operating costs and at the same time provide a more effective communication tool for around 1,000 users. Our solution provided enterprise voice with integration to their existing contact center and a new SIP-based telephony service that reduced call charges while retaining support for required legacy analog devices. Within the higher education sector, a university that caters for a significant number of international and distance students required a modern and future-proof communication tool with an emphasis on video conferencing and collaboration. The solution proposed by Getronics offered a migration to Lync 2013 for around 100,000 users and direct integration to their existing Cisco Tandberg and Polycom video conferencing solutions. I'll now pass you over to my colleague Joachim, who will talk about some other solutions that we've implemented recently.
Thank you, Stephen. Indeed, let me cover two good references. One is a local bank, a long-standing customer of ours in the Benelux region with around 800 seats. 4 or 5 years ago, we already migrated them away from traditional PBX to an IPT environment with the Cisco contact center included. Today, we've just been finalizing the migration to the latest Cisco collaborative environment, so including all the other modalities as web conferencing, audio conferencing, and video rooms. Second example is in the automotive sector, where we have been first engaged on a consultancy level to help them to assess the current state. There was a lot of legacy PBX still around, and we've first started off with a POC on Lync, and then phase 1 was rolling out instant messaging presence. After that was done, we included the conferencing, and for the HQ, enterprise voice has been rolled out. The next phase is now also rolling out enterprise voice to the other offices in the European region. The last element we want to cover is the return on investment calculations. This is not something, this is the graph that we're showing now is showing you the result of a calculation that we do in a collaborative way with our customers. This is not something I can elaborate on in all the details, but I can tell you that we really cover all the aspects that need to be covered. So not only the hard dollar savers, but also the soft benefits that come into play, and also the IT benefits in the fact of the simplification of your infrastructure, going from different multiple platforms to one platform. All those things are elements we take along. But as you can understand, this is quite important work that needs to be done. So depending on the maturity of the customer, those cost savings and those calculations can really be different. That's why, in average, I would say we come up quite often with very solid business cases, but it's a case-by-case approach we have. Thank you very much for your attention, and here I'm handing the word over to Wolfgang to close the event.
We are at the end of our presentation part now. During the last 30 minutes, we gave you an overview what UC means for Jetronics. We have opened already our Q&A chat a few minutes ago to listen to your feedbacks and questions now. Please get in contact with us. We already received a first question. What are the biggest cost-saving elements Jetronics sees across the different verticals? Joachim, it seems for me to be a question most suitable for you. Do you want to answer it?
For sure, Wolfgang. As explained, the amount one can save is very dependent on the current state of the communication and collaboration tools the organization has in use. But in general, we see with the vast customer base we have in the different the biggest savings we see in the different categories we explained previously. In the hard euro or pound savings is audio and web conferencing. Quite some organizations are spending a lot of money there. By optimizing and going to one platform, that's a big saving. Telephony charges, that's linked to two things. It's like not only the landline spend, so the minute spend, but also the mobile spend you have. By implementing least cost routing and the fact that you also have clients from around your smartphones are connected to the Wi-Fi, you can make conference calls and calls with your mobile. It's introducing the cost on that side. And then, as already mentioned by Steven, it's also on the licensing. Due to the siloed approach of a lot of organizations, there's a lot of gain there because quite often organizations are paying twice the licensing on different platforms that have more modalities to offer. And then from the soft benefit side, I listed there the less travel because, as explained, you would be amazed even on a national level. If you look to Europe in general and the major cities, I think everybody knows even every day, every hour of the day, it's busy on the roads. So the amount of time you gain by doing more, by replacing more face-to-face with collaborative sessions, that's another big one. And then productivity gain out of offering rich presence information, so offering your employees the modalities so that they can choose and see how they can best communicate with their peers or with partners. That's another big and important aspect. And then the operational benefit, just imagine if you're still having 20 PBXs around of different brands quite often with different maintenance contracts and moves, additions and changes that are quite often very expensive. That's also an important one. And then of course, from the operational benefits, instead of managing 20 platforms going to one platform, you can also relook at the personnel that you have to have in place to support it. And secondly, also from a troubleshooting point of view and ticketing level, that will be also less as before. That was it, Wolfgang.
Thank you, Joachim. We have a second question received. Is a hybrid communication system really feasible, and what are the benefits of this approach? Steven, do you feel comfortable to answer this one?
Yes, of course, yeah. So in moving from a traditional telephony system with private branch exchanges into a modern unified communications environment, often a hybrid approach is going to be the most commercially viable way forward. So it allows for the retention of the existing stable platform and the telephony routing engine. That's the numbering schemes, call recording systems, etc. And at the same time provides a period of coexistence prior to this phased decommissioning of legacy systems. So there's a kind of a period of adjustment in there where both systems are running in parallel. And this period of coexistence enables the gradual shift of users to the new system, and this avoids a culture shock that could impact business productivity. Hybrid solutions, they also allow current infrastructure investments to be fully realized, and at the same time provide an immediate benefit from new features and new modes of communication and the reduced operating costs that go with that.
Thanks, Stephen. A third question came in. Which is the most popular UC platform today? I will answer this question myself from a Jetronics global UC perspective. The question is difficult to answer because requirements and demands drive the platform decision, and they differ from company to company. Nearly all of the Jetronics prospects have invested into communication platforms some years ago. We don't operate with clients today without any PBX and UC experience. They get in touch with us because of their chosen solutions get to the end of their life cycle and need to be refreshed. They are too expensive in regards of maintenance cost and additional rollouts, or they don't fulfill end-user expectations and IT departments are under pressure to innovate, or clients are expecting a managed UC service because IT complexity increases consistently and clients don't have needed skills and resources with them. That are the four most essential drivers for prospects to interact with us. Today, 7 out of 10 requests care about Microsoft UC platform to some extent as part of a hybrid UC solution or as a replacement for traditional PBX. Our prospects and clients expect a unified platform which offers UC integration on application layer. Stephen called it phase 3 or unified in one of his earlier slides already. Our clients care about Microsoft Lync or Skype for Business, as it will be named in 2015, because of the seamless integration into their workspaces, the fancy user experience, and the licensing model. In regards of licensing, our partner Cisco Systems offers since years a similar method called Enterprise License Agreement, ELA. This drives additional prospect interest and business opportunities for us. A fourth question came in. What holds organizations back to change their UC communication infrastructure today? I think it's a question for Joachim. Can you answer it, Joachim?
Yeah, I'll do my best. I think due to the siloed approach, that's one of the elements I see why a lot of organizations are doubting and are not sure. There are several reasons, but one of the reasons is that due to the siloed approach in the past, the business cases didn't bring the return on investment, so there's quite some reluctance and doubts about the real business benefits in quite some organizations today due to that past experiences. Secondly, what you see in larger organizations, due to the fact that it was siloed, it was also quite often different departments that were responsible for certain modalities. This being said, it's also an organizational element that comes into play, and that's why I'm saying we need executive sponsorship. Without an executive sponsorship, it's almost impossible in larger organizations to take the next steps, because it's also a battle between departments and And the third one that's more towards the mid-market that I'm seeing is the decision chains are shorter and due to the fact that smaller organizations, but there it's quite often from a budget point of view and the relevancy for their business that's the challenge. So making sure they understand what it means, and it's not for every business that you can say that unified comms is going to bring the solution for their business challenges. So I think that's the third element. And lastly, I think that's in common, an element I notice out of the interactions with our customers is due to the fast pace of the technological evolution, a lot of organizations find it very hard to take decisions because the evolutions, the product life cycles went from 3 years to 3 months, and that makes it also hard for organizations, and that's why talking to us is advisable, seeing that those shorter life cycles also mean that products evolve, features evolve, and what it can mean to business is also, and that's the most important aspect in my opinion, is looking what those technological evolutions can mean for a business.
Understood. Thank you very much. We have a question received. It will be the last one of today's webinar. What are key success factors in a UC rollout? What is really driving user adoption? I think it's a sales-related question. Joachim, do you feel happy again to answer it?
Yes, I'm always happy. I think Stephen already mentioned it. I think it's from the beginning, from a project, even during the POC phase, it's like making sure the organization identified the right persons. I call it the productivity or collaboration champions they have. Involve the users in the proof of concept phase already, and in the pilot phase, make sure you communicate and think about the user trainings, because that's so often, even in companies, you would think that their main business was consultancy. I'm not disclosing the name. I was amazed to see that they didn't spend time on the user training. And then again, if you offer new tools and you don't train the people properly on how they can use Jabber or Link Client and all the modalities they can access and the ease of use, if you don't do that, then yeah, it's a pity, because then you will not see the benefits it can bring. And as already stated also, it's know your workforce, know the workflows in your company and the profiles that you have, and make sure you licensing from that end also properly. Again, delivering the tools your organization and that your people really need. And if you do that good, then your adoption is going to be there. People will be using the tools. You'll see a change in how your organization does things on a daily basis, and that's really then also going to bring you the return on investment you hoped for.
Fine and understood again. Thank you very much. We are at the end of our today's webinar now. Thank you for joining us today. In case of any future interest in Unified Comms, please get back to Stephen, Joachim, or me. It will be a pleasure for us to help and interact with you. Thank you very much for your today's participation, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.